What is Queen and Slim about? My name is Tristan Lane, and I'm going to be doing a critical film analysis exploring the different ways that Queen and Slim delivers a very strong thesis. Now let's get right into it and answer the question, what is the thesis of this movie? I believe the thesis of this movie is to lean into truth and vulnerability. Let's elaborate on that. Ignorance and fear have manifested into a hateful and destructive relationship between US police and the Black community. The only way to rise above it is to lean into vulnerability and love. Now, to explore this thesis a little bit, let's analyze the cultural climate that this movie was released into. The film was released on November 27th, 2019, in the midst of the Black Lives Matter campaign. The film's relevance was highlighted a little bit later by the murder of George Floyd in May of 2020. This murder gave Black Lives Matter even more traction and put the relationship between US police and the Black community in the spotlight. Now we're going to analyze the actual techniques this film uses in order to deliver its thesis. The first thing we're going to look at is narrative. How does the film use narrative in order to convey its thesis? At first glance, the plot is essentially a Black man and woman who are both innocent and they're forced to run from the law. The Black man, in self-defense, killed a police officer, but is treated as a very guilty murderer. Now, this is how the film begins to plant the seed of ignorance in the viewer's mind. Because as we see him running from the law, the viewer immediately puts together the incongruity of the situation. We think to ourselves, why is he having to run from the law? He is innocent. This is how the film begins to build the idea of ignorance in our society. The film develops this idea further by highlighting that ignorance and hate are the enemy, no matter which side they're on. This is highlighted in a scene when a young boy is rioting and he does something very unexpected in the viewer's eyes. Check this clip out.
I'm not your son.
What's your name, young man?
I ain't gotta tell you that.
Listen, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just trying to clear these streets and do my job. You're not supposed to be here.
Okay, so what you gonna do? You gonna shoot me? You gonna shoot me if I don't leave?
No, but I will arrest you. Listen, man, I'm begging. Just go home, all right? What you...
Now, this is a very shocking piece of narrative for the viewer. And we can tell by the look on the boy's face that he is also quite shocked by what he has done. The point of including this piece of narrative is to demonstrate that fear, anger, and hate and ignorance are the enemy, and they can manifest themselves on either side of this destructive battle. The film lets us empathize with both the perspective of the police officer and the perspective of the boy in the scene. And we see that it's the ignorance and the fear and the anger that is causing this destruction, and not either one side per se. The film also uses narrative to explore how humans can choose to not buy into fear and ignorance and to choose to buy into vulnerability and truth. Let's see how it does that. Throughout the first large chunk of the film, the character Queen is relatively emotionally reserved, demonstrating someone that has emotional barriers because of fear of getting hurt. In this scene of this screenshot I have here, she demonstrates her first vulnerable and raw emotion. She expresses a past hurt in her life and sheds tears in front of Slim. Now, this act of vulnerability leads to the two of them making love. And I believe this is the film trying to communicate that is by leaning into vulnerability that we can manifest love and wholeness in our relationships and in our society. The next element that I'm going to be analyzing is the use of costume and makeup to help communicate the movie's thesis. Now here we see men who are battle ready, protected in armor. That's contrasted with Queen and Slim, who are literally undressing and displaying their naked vulnerability. In the battle ready armor scene, we see hate and violence expressed. In the scene where they're expressing their raw, literally nakedness, we see them expressing truth and love. The movie also cleverly utilizes cinematography to help deliver its thesis. As read on our textbook on page 205, implied proximity refers to the distance between the camera and thus the viewer and the subject on the screen. Barsom Monaghan. As we can see in this next clip, the viewer's implied proximity is that of with the crowd, but not with the boy who's walking. And while it's walking with the boy, we can't quite see him that well because we're losing him in the crowd. And that is a metaphor for him being lost and sucked into the anger and the hate. Check out this clip. So as we'll see in this next little clip, the film also uses editing to help communicate its thesis. It cuts from a scene where two humans are being raw and real and literally making love straight to a scene where we see hate in someone's eyes. This helps the film to communicate just how different these two choices are and how different what they manifest is. Check out this little clip. That cut right there truly exaggerates just how different the polarity of these decisions are. And the last element that I wanted to analyze here was the use of setting in the film. On the left, you can see they're in nature and surrounded by nature. And on the right, they're in a man-made structure, which appears to be like an everyday neighborhood. Now, the point of this polarity is that here on the left, they manifested love. And that was accomplished by letting their walls down. And that's shown through the setting of natural forest. And on the right, we're seeing this hatred and violence play out through all of these man-made constructed walls. And the point of this setting is to let these walls come down and connect with our vulnerability. That's the last element that I wanted to analyze. Thank you so much for listening to my analyzation today.